Welcome to this special episode of Kick 'em the Head podcast. And as always, we're talking everything MMA and we have a jam-packed episode. Today, we are speaking with Preggy, Valuyathum, and William Forge from MMASA, doing a recap of the MMASA National Championships that happened in Durban from the 18th to 21st of April, 2024. Gentlemen, as always, welcome to the Kick 'em the Head podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
An absolute pleasure to have you both. Gentlemen, this weekend in Durban was phenomenal. We had a short chat about it before the show, and just honestly, the energy that was there, the fighters that were there, the skills that were shown. I had an amazing time, and just seeing the event unfold from day 1 to day 3, having Supersport covering the first day, us covering the semifinals and the finals. Tell me more about how it was just seeing this event come to fruition, because obviously we spoke before the event and everyone was very excited about who's going to win, who's going to get most medals, how the athletes were going to perform, and where all this was going to go. So how are you feeling about the event, and tell me more about how it all went for you guys?
You can go, William.
Yeah, look, I can talk
you.
now. I know you wanted to have a little chat post event on that Sunday. You wanted to have a chat. Now I was so shattered. I was like, no, let's do this a bit later in the week. I need more than 2 hours sleep. I think from an event point of view, I couldn't be happier. We had 4 days. There was so little hiccups. Everything ran pretty smoothly. From a showcase of MMA and skill sets and athletes, you couldn't get better. We had the best of the best in the country competing. We had stacked divisions, the gold medal, which is a phenomenal achievement. So it worked out if I've got the numbers right, it's 151 athletes. 108 matches, 40 different divisions that were competed for. So that's a lot of numbers. And as you said, the youth event on Thursday with the Super Schools live streaming was a whole other challenge. So the guys who came in and did that, Daniel and the guys, were amazing. They're so professional. They came in and set everything up, and it ran incredibly smoothly. It just put a bit of pressure on to make sure that the event and timing went off properly. So we ran perfectly on that day, and I think the youth had proper exposure for once. I think the issue we've had in the past is the youth haven't had as much exposure as the seniors, and you kind of this was the first time that they got the premier exposure, and I think that's been great for the sport, obviously. And then the senior and the junior event kicked off, and that was just a whirlwind of 3-4 days in a row of, as you know, 6 a.m. weigh-ins, 10 o'clock starts, long days. But once again, I know I speak for Preggy as well. We're very happy with the way it went. We're happy with the number of participants we had. 6 provinces, came through. And if you look at what happened with the medal counts, provinces who haven't necessarily featured in the past came in and they got medals. So it was very nice to see those medals getting split a little bit over the provinces. Very happy with that. I could go on talking about it. You were there, you saw a lot of it. I think people even watching it on stream, it's not the same as being live. Live, that the atmosphere there, you've got all these athletes competing against each other, these provincial coaches and teams trying to get that number 1 spot. But I think the camaraderie shown was amazing. I don't think there was very much negativity in the cage, out of the cage. I know a lot of the provincial coaches, we all went out and we had lunch together or supper together. There's a nice friendly rivalry, but at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want MMA in this country to grow. And I think we saw a good step towards that with this last tournament.
So Preggy, you were more on the organizing side. Obviously, William was a coach as well. From your perspective, how was the event and the quality, obviously, that's coming from, the Team KZN, Team Gauteng, Team Western Cape, Team Eastern Cape, and Team Northern Cape, which had 2 fighters, which was very exciting. They both got medals, interestingly enough.
So the quality of the athletes are phenomenal. And as we touched on previously, it's not about like an event happens one day, start and finish, it's over. A tournament is absolutely grueling. And you will see a true champion athlete going through the tournament from day to day, because you have to preserve your energy, make sure you don't get injured for the next day, and you go on and on and on. I mean, for us as organizers, I was broken by day 2. I mean, we slept like 10, 11 o'clock at night, making sure the venue's cleaned up, everything's set up. William had to set all the technical aspects with smooth comp, back and forth, get the brackets right and all that. So I think, yeah, we did good. We did good, and obviously we're proud of the athletes as well. We had a massive, great attendance. We had a good venue. We had the privilege of proper media, professional media, covering the events. I mean, you guys were phenomenal. SuperSport were phenomenal. And I mean, even people that don't even watch or regularly follow MMA ended up following it on SuperSport, and it was great stuff because we were out there. And obviously, the objective of all this is, most importantly, is to bring all the provinces together to make sure that we give all the athletes throughout the country a level platform where they can come together and benchmark against the other athletes. And the most important thing is to develop the quality of MMA. I mean, if you're in a promotion, you just have one fight, you go home, 3 months later you have another fight. I mean, now all the athletes, the best athletes, are together. They're watching each other. They're learning skill sets. The coaches are engaging. So, I mean, this is a most unique event of the year in South Africa, if I may say so. There's nothing else like it.
Absolutely. There's nothing else like it, especially when we speak about the tournament style of MMA and looking at it from the fact that if you've gone through to the final, you've probably fought 4 days in a row. Maybe you've only had one fight or maybe 2 fights, but it's exposure to what it is to fight to win. Now, with that, the fighters who are fighting at this tournament will be going through to the Africa Games. Now, the Africa Games are happening in May, this coming May, in Namibia. Can you tell us more about that and more about the IMMAF structure and how these athletes that we saw at this South African MMA Nationals will then feed into the international structure?
Yeah, so coming up in Namibia, that's the 27th of May through to the 1st of June. That's the IMMAF Africa Championships. We've had continental championships, obviously, before. IMMAF's hosted them, being the premier international organization for amateur mixed martial arts. Last year was Angola, and then the previous 4 iterations were in South Africa. So this is the first time we're getting through to Namibia, which is obviously, it's always nice to get it moved around. And as you said, it's not a big window between our SA champs now and heading off to Namibia. We've got a 4 or 5 week lead time. But in saying that, what happened yesterday, Dwayne and myself spent a lot of time and went through the results from nationals and looked to select an SA squad, training squad. So we always do a squad first before we do a team. Squad means there'll be a couple of reserves and extra guys. And we put together the training squad. We started a group with that. And then our first question was, are you available? Firstly, are you injured? Obviously nationals, some guys took some injuries. Will you be able to compete? Do you have any other prior commitments that'll, exclude you from Namibia? And, some of the guys do. Some of the guys are in university. They're writing exams. Some of our youth are writing trials at school. Some of the adults obviously have work and other commitments. And, there's a lot of things that go in with this. Being an amateur MMA athlete, you've got a lot of other things in your life. This is not your full-time career at the moment. So we have a squad at the moment. We will have that finalized by this weekend. We have to, obviously, because we're giving these guys a short notice to get over to Namibia. We've done budgets, so we've got the price of travel to Namibia, the price of obviously accommodation, kit, entry, and the rest of it. And we'll be sending a team. We've got a strong senior squad. We've got a strong junior squad. And then for the first time ever in African IMMAF tournament, we'll be sending across youth. They piloted this last month in overseas in Europeans. They had youth over there for the first time. So they'll be doing it in Africa now. So we'll be able to send our youth A, B, and C across. We are just now trying to ascertain, how many of those divisions will have athletes in and how busy they'll be. But we've got a good youth team selected already. Between the youth squad and the senior junior squad, we've got over 60 athletes. So it's quite a big squad. That'll obviously be shaved down, like I said, with everything that goes into preparing for a tournament like this. And then when it comes to IMMAF Africa Championships, it's massive. It's every IMMAF federation on the African continent that belongs to IMMAF Federation. So you've got obviously Angola, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Nigeria. We'll all be sending teams, and you'll be competing against the best of the best in Africa, which is a great preparation to World Championships heading over. And then it's not just the best of the best in Africa, it's the best of the best in the world. So this is that next step. Do your nationals, get the level there, go to Africa's next level up, go to Worlds, obviously the ultimate proving ground. So we're very excited for this one. It's a bit tricky in South Africa. It falls over election weekend and a bunch of stuff like that.
There's a lot there that you said that I want to unpack a little bit, William. And I think to you, Preggy, specifically around the sponsorship. Now, you mentioned all that is required to go to these tournaments, whether it be locally, regionally, or internationally. So how does sponsorship factor in, and how is MMASA currently sponsored? And I guess reach out to the sponsors, speak to whoever it is that you want to come on board and tell them what your structure is and what the need is, so that we can understand how to get these fighters to those levels that William has just articulated.
So basically, MMASA is an NPO. We are self-funded. Generally, the athletes who attend these events usually sponsor themselves. We do reach out to sponsors. I mean, even with the nationals now, we had a handful of sponsors that helped us and made it possible. I mean, we've got, even from the paramedics, that we had discounted rates, the doctor, we had discounted rates. We had a handful of sponsors that helped us. So ultimately, that helped to put some kind of funding towards the athletes, very minimal. But ultimately, a lot of the athletes, as much as they are qualified and eligible to participate, probably might not end up going because of lack of funds. We're always looking for sponsorship. I mean, it'll be a great help if we could take every athlete, but it's either they afford it or they get sponsors. So we're just going to start reaching out now to businesses and interested parties to see if they're willing to partner up and adopt an athlete or sponsor towards the team. As I reiterate that MMA is self-funded and there's not much, funding for the athletes. So that's a predicament we are in now.
So with regards to the international tournaments, when is the next one? And generally, how many athletes do we take to these international tournaments? Because I know that last year there were two, because there was a bit of a catch-up from COVID, where there was one at the beginning of the year and then one at the end of the year. I think, Preggy, we spoke when you were at one of the tournaments at the end of last year. So how many athletes normally feed through to the international tournament?
So basically, we have possibly the full team that medaled in the country are eligible to participate. Is that right, William?
Yeah.
Right. So they are eligible. Like, for example, now we got Africa's that's going to be now in the next month. Then there's a youth tournament in August. And then senior nationals, junior and senior nationals in the latter parts of the year. So the Africa's are going to be in Namibia. Then the youth will be in Abu Dhabi, and then the seniors is somewhere in Asia to be confirmed. Is that confirmed?
Yeah, it's Uzbekistan.
Yeah, so I mean, like with the athletes, especially athletes that are amateurs right now, are generally, just getting into the career scene and then the youth. So it is quite taxing on the parents, on them as well. And there's only so much MMASA can do in terms of funding. It's very limited. So it all depends on how the efforts they make to raise funds to get out there. And yeah, it sounds like I'm making a broken record, but it is what it is.
No, I was just saying, say we take, for example, we're going to go to Namibia, and let's take a total cost per athlete of 15,000 Rand for the 4 days. That's for your flights there, that's your accommodation, That's your entry fee into the tournament, food, national kit you got to purchase. So say it's 15,000 Rand. And it'll vary between, say, 10 and 17,000, depending on the flight you get, whatever. So say we're saying 15,000. Once off for one athlete, 15,000 rands, it's a lot of money, but 15,000 rand can be raised. But if you've now got 10 athletes, that's 150,000 rand. If you've got 40 athletes, we're at 600,000 rand now. And at the moment, we've got 60 athletes. So at 60 athletes, we're just shy of R1 million. So all of a sudden, you're funding, it's a lot easier for an individual athlete to get a 15 or 10 or 15,000 rand sponsorship from, a family business, a family member, an old boys school society, whatever it is, than for us as a federation to go and ask for 900,000 rand. That's the issue we've had. It's a big number. In terms of world sports, in terms of what we're spending in rugby and cricket and soccer in South Africa, it's a drop in the ocean, obviously. If you gave me R1 million a year to fund MMA in South Africa, we'd be able to attend all these tournaments. It would be massive, and it's just R1 million, which is kind of what a couple of guys spend on first-class flights to go overseas. So it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme required, but when you break it down, if you don't have a cent, it is a lot. So, like Preggy says, it's a tough situation because we've got a lot of amazing athletes who deserve.
While you're on that 15,000 rand, so for athletes to go to Abu Dhabi is in the region of 30 to 40,000 athletes, and for 60p athletes at in excess of 2.4 million as well. So that's even with the athletes as well, for them to cough up 30 to 40 grand is a task.
It was the same for both worlds last year. Serbia in the beginning of the year, then Albania at the end of the year. There was, between 40 and 50,000 rand an athlete to go, which is a big ask. And bear in mind, none of your coaching staff, your managers and your coaches, we don't get any funds. We self-funded ourselves. So to go to those two events in the last year, there was for me personally, there was a couple of 100,000 rand. So it's it's a lot of money, and it's not sustainable to be able to do these things year in and year out without some income coming in.
So what would be the basic costs? Because sorry, Preggy. So what would be the basic cost? Because you're mentioning 40 to 50,000 per athletes, but if things like kits are covered, a few basic things like food, which normally make up the base cost, would sponsors be able to come in on those levels?
Okay, so if we're looking at international, when we went over to, say, Albania, the most recent one, your biggest expense was your flight to Albania. That was roughly close to 19,000 rand a person, and that's a whack of money, 19,000 rand. It's obviously it's Albania. It's not it's not like going to Italy where it's a main route. So even the flight there, we had that was with a 12-hour layover, so we could save 3,000 rand on the ticket. So and it is hectic. So that was about 19,000 rand for the flight. Your accommodation over there, same thing. You were spending close to 1,500 to 2,000 rand a night getting accommodation. So you've knocked up another, over the 6-7 days, you've knocked up another 15,000 rand in accommodation. Entry fee to participate at an IMMAF Worlds, you are looking at around about 10,000 rand. That includes, though, your fight kit. So you get your 2 fight pants, red and blue. You get your pairs of gloves. You get your shin pads. You get all of that. So you start adding these up. Then you forget you got travel insurance. You're in a foreign country. You need medical aid. So your travel insurance comes in at another 1,000 odd rand a person. And when you start adding all of these things up,
then your food,
another 1,000 rand for a visa. And it all adds up, and that's when you get that 40 to 50,000. And then when you're there, you got to go out and you got to buy food, and you got to, you're an athlete. You can't be going and buying, a hot dog or something. You need reasonably healthy food. You need to be on weight. And the problem with that is obviously it costs money. So if you're going to go out and you're going to buy stuff, and we're on the rand, and we, in Europe, it's not friendly to us generally. Albania was 4-1 in our favor for once, though, so that was quite amazing. So food was cheaper there than in South Africa, which was a bit of an interest. But yeah, it is. Once you get there, just travel. Catching buses or Ubers to the event. It's so everything adds up. Albania, for example, when we got there and I went to check into the hotel, and I'd obviously all the team had already paid, so I had all the money in my credit card, and I went to check in, and they said, no, they don't take credit cards. I got to pay them cash. And I said, well, it's 10,000 euros. I don't literally have 200,000 in cash in me, so I need to pay with my credit card. So they ended up charging me 10% to use my credit card. So that was 1,000 euros, which 100%. So that was 1,000 euros, which is whatever 1,800 or 18,000 rand at the time, which was unaccounted for. Obviously, the team hadn't paid that; they hadn't put that in, so that literally came out of my credit card. Because what are you going to do? You're going to stand there and argue with them. So it's little things like this that literally just come up and they bite you. And Preggy will tell you, you go buy a bottle of water in Europe sometimes, and you 200 rand later. So
Yep.
Yeah. But the more we do this, the more we learn. I won't lie. We do become experienced, and we kind of try and miss all the pitfalls now. So we've learned a little bit from that over the years.
So with that said, what changes and improvements are you guys considering for future localized competitions, not necessarily going as far as Africa, because the one in Durban was great, but there definitely is an opportunity if you have a super sport watching, if you have media there for growth. So what improvements are you guys considering for the next competition, and when are you expecting to have it?
I think we're going to look at having more frequent events across province. There is a possibility that we're going to have more youth events on a regular basis, or there's talks of that. So inter-provincial youth events, and hopefully we're going to get some media exposure via that. In terms of improvements to the event, I think we've spent a lot of time prior years learning and developing the structure of the event. So we have a system that we work now. So it's just a matter of filling in all the aspects. So if we agree on an event, we got a list. We just go down, we knock it, and then we also always have checks and balances and second checks. And then, like with the event, we had a lot of it. I mean, we got limited officials, so a lot of the support and the backbone was volunteers and just mostly interested parties and people who love MMA. So as long as we partner up, I mean, you guys were there. And we had the event covered on all media platforms at no cost to us. And then obviously it was a quid pro quo where you got following and stuff like that. And then we had Super Sport there as well. So that's what we're doing. We just want to get more exposure. And ultimately, if we grow the sport, then if there's more individuals involved, then people will see the interest and start joining us and contributing in whatever way they can. I mean, cash or kind. We're always looking for people to grow the sport. And then this will feed into the senior and the pros and all of that at some point. And then our passion to develop MMA, will be met.
Preggy had a good point. A massive thank you to all the officials who came down at their own cost. Obviously, drove down, flew down, accommodated themselves. And then a massive thanks to all the volunteers. Preggy managed to organize a bunch of volunteers. We had over 11 volunteers. They were there from first thing in the morning till last thing at night. I think that's a massive thank you to them. I think they go unnoticed, but they just came out there, the goodness of their heart, and they love the sport, and they'll be there the whole day working. And I mean, from everything, from the people to keeping the time to the guys giving fresh ice in between every round, to bringing the water for the athletes, to taping the athletes up, to staggering the athletes, having a fight ready, and then having the next fight and the next 4 fights ready. Those guys were amazing. They were literally phenomenal. There was no delay, no issue there, no problem at all. So having people who literally will take the task in their hands and just get it done without having to be micromanaged and chased was amazing, and that took so much pressure off our hands, I believe. So the volunteers and that, huge thanks to them. Huge thanks to all the officials once again who, at their own expense, come and do these things. There's no glory for them. They're not doing this because of the massive fame. Let's be honest with you. You do it because you just love the sport and you just want what's best for the athletes. So yeah, thanks to those guys. And then how to make the event better. I think our backbone and our skeleton is strong. Like the athletes are good, the structure is good, everything's good. The only way to make this better now is to add that the flavor around it, a little bit of the ambiance, a little bit of the, what do you want to call it, the dressing, the window dressing, because I think the actual skeleton's pretty good. We've got a good thing going here. The last few events, the last 3-4 years have been very solid. It's just now adding a little bit better. Like we said, the venue is nice. It's getting these bigger, better venues. It's just making it look better, I think, and adding a little bit more for the spectators and making it so that the athletes want to travel to compete, but also want to be in a venue and an environment where after competing, there's something to do. They can maybe stay a few days, go somewhere. Just adding a little bit more of that to make it more of a full event rather than just a fight event.
So here's a little bit of, this is my last question. Here's a little bit of a curveball question. I was having a chat with someone in the MMA community, and they mentioned the fact that not a lot of athletes who are at the amateur level go pro. There's a very, very, very limited number who go from amateur to pro. So then the question then becomes, if there's a short number, so if there's a small number of athletes who go from amateur to pro, to specifically fighting at nationals, etc., IMMAF, is there value for them in the commercial sector, in the promotional space, in prize fighting? Is there value for them?
For amateurs?
You can go first, Preggy, sorry.
Yeah,
yes, from amateurs to IMMAF, how many people go across to becoming actual pros?
Should they repeat that last part?
How many people go from fighting? So let's say of the IMMAF champions that we've seen internationally, not just here in South Africa, how many of those guys end up going pro?
The majority of the champions do end up with pros, and they get picked by all the top promotions. So if you're an IMMAF champion, you can walk into a UFC contract or Bellator. It's highly likely that you will get selected. I mean, we've seen a good few of them being selected by the top promotions in the world. So, I mean, at least in my opinion, I think at least 60-70%, William, that end up getting into the big promotions.
Yeah. So when we're talking, there's obviously a big difference between South African champion and then an IMMAF world champion. If you're an IMMAF world champion, you will be able to get a contract at one of the bigger promotions. That's a given, because by the time you become an IMMAF world champion, you've done a heck of a lot to get there. So there's a list of them. If you go and look on the IMMAF website and IMMAF social media, they'll list all their previous medal winners who've gone on to be champions. So there's a career there. I mean, just take Amanda Lina, our KZN youth coach. So she won gold, was an IMMAF gold medalist at the first World Championships. Obviously, subsequent to that, she went on and won double 2 belts at the EFC. She still has one of those belts. So she made a very successful career of it, and that was one of South Africa's first world championship. So the thing is, we've got to take the guys from, as you said, SA Nationals to Africa's to get that experience, then from Africa's to Worlds. And you don't just win Worlds on your first attempt. A lot of these guys have been back 3, 4, 5 times. If you look at a lot of the European champions, it's a process. And once you've done that enough, you are of that professional caliber. In South Africa, what we're doing is we're being a lot stricter now with amateurs turning pro. So Preggy and myself both sit on the commission that deals with pro licenses and do evaluations for amateur athletes to turn pro. And right now, we are being a lot more critical with athletes and ensuring that they are at an adequate level to be professional. Because once you turn professional, you don't get a chance to go back to amateur. You don't go and get a chance to have 4 fights in a weekend. You don't. That chance is gone. So guys from nationals now who had 4 fights can go to Africa's and have another 3 fights in 4 weeks' time. You can have 7, 8 fights in a month. That's a lot of fights. As a professional, let's be honest, if you're having 2 fights a year, that's quite a lot. So you need to make sure that by the time you turn professional, you are at an adequate level and you have ticked all the boxes. You've done what you need to do. You are good enough to not just be a professional, but be a competitive professional. Because the pay scale between a low-level professional and a champion, we're not even talking this. It's massive. The entry level pay for a professional is below minimum wage. Basically, it's not great, guys. You've got to be in that 10% to make money as a professional. So 10% of amateurs should turn pro. Of those 10%, only 10% of those will be successful at pro. So it's a very small market.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, William. So basically, what we've done now, in terms of awarding a professional competency and license, we are trying to ensure that whoever we award this to has the necessary skill sets to be able to be totally fluent in all aspects before we award them a license. I mean, your ground game, your stand up, your wrestling, you must have proper competency. And also, as a datum, I mean, we're not going to give somebody a license if they have a deficiency in any of the competencies. So we rather get them to develop themselves as an amateur, participate properly, and when they outstanding in all aspects or they're fully competent, then they'll get awarded the license. Historically, that never used to happen to that degree, and I think it was a bit more lenient. So I mean, that ultimately left the standard of the impacted the standard of the pros that are coming into the fold now.
So with all that said, I know I said I had my last question previously, but this is really my last question. And this is a very targeted question. I'm not sure if anyone can answer it, to be honest with you. But we saw Kiara Fegan fighting at these national championships. She won 2 medals. She was injured. Do you think we will see her at Worlds? I think it's more directed to you, William, because you're a national coach.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, Kiara is a special athlete. She's she did Worlds last year in Albania. She came a little short. When I say she came short, she medaled. She was on the podium. She got a bronze medal. We were aiming for gold, and I believe she can get the gold. But that's the learning curve. It is what it is. And she'll be better this year. At SA Champs now, she had a really tough fight against Demi in the featherweight division. So Demi came up from 61 kilograms because there was no one to fight her there. Kiara was at 65, gave her a fight. Then Kiara at 65 went up to 70 to give the girl, the athlete at 70, a fight. So, honestly, both of them, Kiara and Demi, had a war at 65. That was a great showcase, both of them, to be honest with you. Demi's growth in the last year since her last nationals was phenomenal. I don't think a lot of people expected her to come out and give Kiara the fight. Kiara's never been, got into the third round, and so that's a big up there. And then Kiara took an injury to her knee there. She got a damaged knee against Demi, and instead of saying, well, look, I've got the gold medal already, I don't need to go fight 70 tomorrow, I don't need to prove anything, I've already got a SA Champs from last year, I've got an IMMAF gold medal in at Africa's, I've got a world gold medal. She didn't. She just sucked it up and came out the next day and performed and got that medal. So Kiara's a special athlete. She's really tough. She's going to work on some of the things that she can be better at, and she knows that. But absolutely, I expect to see her at Africa's in a month, and then watch her space. I won't be surprised if we see her with a gold medal at Worlds.
I am absolutely looking forward to her performance. And the fight that you mentioned, her against Debbie, was honestly one of my fights of the tournament, because like you said, no one expected it. And Debbie was vicious. They were going at each other. She had Kiara. Oh my God, that fight was phenomenal, honestly. So shout out to both ladies. Thank you for that amazing fight. Inches until Kiara got that armbar when she was like, you know what, this fight needs to end now. So definitely shout out to that fight. Yes, William.
I mean, if you're talking about fights, we've got to talk about, I'm going to throw it out there, Giancarlo versus Jason at the welterweight final. That was 2 incredible athletes. And Jason's going down to lightweight. Lightweight's his division. He came up to welterweight there. He's going to be competing at lightweight. So that was an amazing backward and forward. 2 guys with a massive amount of heart just going at it. That's got to be one of my fights for me. But I think fight of the tournament, I don't know. It's going to be hard to beat light
Trevor.
heavyweight fight between Trevor and Jaden.
Yeah,
Jaden
I also agree. I think I ref that fight. I mean, it was amazing.
That
It was amazing.
that was an absolute war between two guys who would not be moved. They landed massive. I've seen pictures, obviously, of both of their faces, and I've spoken to them both afterwards. And I think a lot of guys were drinking through a straw for the next week. But Jaden coming out there and putting on that performance against Trevor, then the next day coming in and taking out undeniably the favorite, Bayo, who's an absolute athletic specimen and talented beyond belief, a medical doctor as well. So I don't know why he does this. But no, to put it over Bayo the way he did, Jaden's probably my standout athlete of the tournament. Just those two performances back to back. So yeah, once again, I'm talking a lot, but very excited to break these things down. And hopefully we can see Jaden.
Jaden smashed. Like, when I saw that fight, all I could think was he's smashing, smash. He smashed. That was a smashing fight. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the time. So we've talked a lot about the nationals that happened this past weekend, IMMAF that's coming next month, and then international competition that's coming later this year. If anyone wants to get involved, whether it be sponsorship, whether it be athletes who are listening, where would people be able to contact MMASA and get involved?
Yeah, look, we're on social media. If you go to the Facebook page, you drop a message on our Facebook message, it'll come through to us. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to obviously give Preggy or myself a call. My number's 082-929-9279. But we're not hard to find. So if anyone wants to get on board and assist in any way, and once again we say anyway, like any assistance, no matter how big or small, will be much appreciated by everyone.
And Preggy?
Yeah, my number is 081. Yeah, kick him in the head.
There we go. Kick him in the head. That's how we love it. Well, you can give me a number if you'd like for anyone who's looking to get in contact.
You can get me on my social media platforms. I've got lots of work things going on with my cell phone number. It's Preggy Valuyathum on Facebook and Preggy Valuyathum on Instagram. You can inbox me and then I'll give you guys a call. Thank you so much for the opportunity again. And thank you for all the assistance you've done with us as well. Thanks.
Amazing, gentlemen. Thank you so much. And as always, Preggy beat me to it this time around with the kick him in the head. But as always, can we please end the interview with a nice, loud, big kick him in the head?
On 3.
Kick him in the head.
Yeah. What? Kick him in the head.
You guys were in tandem. I missed it.
You'll have to sync it together.
Thank you again.
It's a pleasure. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Signing off. We will chat again soon.
Thanks,
Great
man.
stuff.